Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to introduce Edouard Mignon from Cartier, who's going to explain the concept of ID One.
Thank you. Thank you, James. My name is Edouard Mignon. I'm in charge of the product development at Cartier Horologerie in Switzerland. And I'm going to make you a presentation about ID One, which is the first Cartier concept watch that is on display on the stand right at the entrance. But before going into that, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction about where it comes from. So Cartier is really known as a jeweler. You all know about Cartier as a jeweler, but Cartier has a very strong DNA in terms of watchmaking. We have been producing watches since 1853. We have been producing wristwatches since 1904 with the famous Santos, which is considered by some historians as one of the very first watch that has been designed for the wrist, not a pocket watch that has been transformed for the wrist. And at that time, approximately at that time, Louis Cartier made a special deal with Edmond Gégère in order to produce exclusive movements for Cartier in order to be produced by its workshops in London, in New York, and in Paris. But at that time, until the 1970s, it was a very, very limited quantities of watches. That is to say, approximately 1,000 watches per year. So that was really, really tiny. And from the 1970s, we decided to go to Switzerland because the volumes were much higher and we wanted to be at the right place to produce our watches. And we chose La Chaux-de-Fonds because La Chaux-de-Fonds is a place where you have a very, very tight network of suppliers and where you can find almost everything, dials, crystals, cases, bracelets, in order to produce your watches. So we decided to move there approximately in the 1970s. And it's also a place that is really nice because you have got a lot of know-how, a know-how in terms of craftsmanship, but also in terms of technology. And what we are really seeking at the manufacturer is the combination of the two. The hand of the watchmaker, but also the machine in order to produce precise pieces. And that's for now 40 years that we are in La Chaux-de-Fonds. We have been innovating a lot in terms of organization, in terms of processes, but also in terms of products. And that's what I'm going to show you today with ID One. So ID One, ID for Innovation Department, and One because we are aiming that there will be an ID 2, an ID 3, and so on and so on. So ID One is a concept watch. It's not intended for sale. It's intended to show us the direction where we want to go in terms of mechanical movements development. Mechanical movements are quite new to Cartier, so we wanted to do them a little bit differently and to set up the direction for the future. And that was the first purpose of this concept watch. But the second purpose was purely internal because we have an R&D team for now more than 8 years. And the problem with R&D is that the people are working in very, very specific areas and sometimes it's difficult to make them work together. And we decided to make this concept watch and to let them work on a very concrete project in order to materialize and to motivate and to work in teamwork. And that was the second purpose of this concept watch. So before going into the details that led us to this conception, I will show you a little film that will give you a little glimpse of what ID One is before the presentation. Okay, so we started this project with an observation. And this observation was that all the mechanical watches in the world needs to be adjusted. And they need to be adjusted for two main reasons. The first reason is that when you assemble a watch that is composed of traditional components that are traditionally machined by the traditional industrial way, you cannot just assemble them and then it works. The watch won't work. And that's why, and that's due to the fact that the components are not sufficiently precise to allow the assembly to work properly without any adjustment. And that's why during the watchmaking history, the watchmakers have invented many, many devices in order to be able to adjust the precision of the components and the precision of their assembly. To give you an idea, more than half of the assembly time of a mechanical movement at Cartier is devoted to adjustments, which sounds kind of like crazy. The second reason is that when you have your watch, it's properly tuned at the factory, then it goes to the wrist of the customer, and then it has to cope with the aggressions of the environment, with the shocks, with vibration, with the aging of the lubrication, with the magnetism, and all that sort of things can disrupt the adjustments, the initial adjustments of the watch. And then the customer has to come back to the after-sales to have his watch reset. To give you another idea, more than 2/3 of the customers coming back for mechanical watches at Cartier are coming back for a problem of adjustment. So that's why we set up the goal of the project, which was to create the first adjustment-free watch without any adjustment. So this presentation will show you firstly, how did we achieve that at the time of its assembly? How did we achieve to choose the right materials to be able to do so? And then, in the second part, how did we achieve to be able to cope with all the aggressions of the environment that has to cope a watch? So the first thing that we wanted to find was to find the right process in order to be able to produce very precise components. So we decided to go to the semiconductor industry because we knew that these processes, the photo etching processes, were able to produce pieces precise to the micron. That was very logical for us. So we chose these processes, but then we had to choose the right materials. Then we decided to work on the critical components of the watch, the components that have to be adjusted. These components are these three ones. The first one is the balance wheel, the second one is the hairspring, and the last one is the escapement. These are critical because these three components combined are giving the watch its precision. So that means that you need a lot of precision and you need a lot of adjustment if you want to get your watch very precise. So how did we tackle that? The first component that is traditionally adjusted by the watchmakers it's the balance wheel. To give you an image, a balance wheel is more or less like a wheel on a car. I don't know if you have ever noticed, but on a wheel you have little weights around the rim of the wheel, and especially when you remove your tire and you replace your tire, you have to re-put some weight in order to load properly the wheel, otherwise it will wobble and ultimately it will destroy the ball bearings of the car. For a balance wheel, this is exactly the same. And what the watchmakers have invented during history is to kind of screw or unscrew some little screws. You can find them on the first sketch, which is the traditional balance wheel, or even sometimes to remove material by grinding the outer circle of the balance wheel. Here, we had the process. We had to find the right material. The right material, which shows carbon crystal. Carbon crystal is a derivative of carbon in a crystalline form that is very close to diamond. And it has the very nice property of being very hard and very light at the same time, which is key for being a balance wheel. So we chose this material and we decided to photo etch it precise to the micron. That means that the balancing of the balance wheel is directly done by design and not by a further adjustment that could be made to the watch.